Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm going to give 30 seconds to let other people that are joining now. And also just know that we're recording the session so we can share later with you. And we'll start in a few seconds here. Thank you again for giving us your time today. I should have had some background music, but I didn't think of that. Sorry about that. And I'm a terrible singer, so you do not want to hear me sing. So. Okay, I think we have a good about 40-something people joining us for the session, so that's very exciting. My name is Tanya Wilcox. I'm the director for college and scholar programs at TheDream.Us, and I really have the pleasure to engage from time to time with the team members at our partner colleges that are doing all the amazing work to support dreamers accomplish their college and career dreams. And we are gathered here today to do some of the work to figure out how we can work together to better serve these students. So thank you for taking the time to join us, and thank you in advance for any of the input or suggestions that you might give us throughout this session. And joining me today is my wonderful colleague, Hayne Lee. Hayne, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. If you could let us know also in the chat, we'd love this to be as engaging as possible, which colleges you're from. I'm seeing Yvonne from Bronx, so just giving a quick shout out. I'm the Director of Measurement and Evaluation here at TheDream.Us and collect and look at all things data. And so I'll be sharing some of our most recent data from both our alumni and our scholars as we sort of set the stage for today's conversation.
Thank you, Hayne. And I also have several of my colleagues joining us in this group. Maybe you could just wave. Sadana, who is our manager of communications, Candy, who is the president of TheDream.Us, Veronice, who is one of our new team members and who you will get to meet, I'm sure, over the next few months, but she's going to help us a lot with evaluation of the program. And I don't know if anyone else has joined because I cannot see, but we're all excited that you are here. And let's get going. So let's see. Okay, so the agenda for today is we really want to share with you some of the data that we've gathered through the surveys that we've done of our alumni and of our scholars. So Hayne is going to be sharing that data that really informs the work that we all could be doing to support dreamers. And then, as if you remember, we also did a survey of our career services liaisons in the summer. So we have some of the findings from that. And that data will really hopefully lead us to a conversation about some effective practices that we have in place and how we can work together and collaborate to serve these students. And then we'll end a little bit with some of the programs and services that TheDream.Us is putting in place right now. So that's our agenda for today. And with that, before we start, I just want to give a quick comment about some basic things that we all need to know as we work with those dreamers that have DACA or TPS, which gives them work authorization. And DACA right now is still in place for those who have it, so they can renew it every 2 years. So we give always the advice to our students with DACA to please renew it about 150 days before it expires, so that there's no gap in their work authorization. One key thing for us to let students know all the time is that if they have DACA and work authorization, they do not need sponsorship from a potential employer. And that's a key thing for them to know, because if a student tells an employer that they want or need sponsorship, it makes it less likely that they can be hired. And the reality is that they do not need it because they have their employment authorization. And it is unlawful for employers to refuse to hire people that have DACA or TPS. They have court cases or litigation that has brought against some employers for that. So it's important for the employers to know this. And then finally, that those who have DACA or TPS, they do not need to disclose their status when they're going through the application process or even after they hired and are employed. The employer only needs to know is that the student has work authorization, and as soon as the student shows them the documentation of that work authorization, then the employer has met its legal requirements, and the students do not need to disclose how they got that work authorization. So these are some important tips and that we need to share with our dreamers as they're looking for employment, and for you to keep in mind. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Haynes so she can share some of the data that she has gathered.
Great. Thank you, Tanya. And just very quickly, because I see Lynette dropping her LinkedIn information in the chat box. Speaking of career connections, it'd be great to connect with folks on LinkedIn. So would love to see more of those LinkedIn URLs being dropped in the chat box. So I'm going to take a couple minutes here to share some of our preliminary top level findings from what our scholars and our alumni are telling us, particularly as it pertains to their career readiness and career journeys as they transition out of college. Just a really quick overview of what we're looking at in terms of who our scholars and graduates are. So we're going to see more and more graduates come through the door as we collect that spring 21 graduation data. But as of right now, we're looking at over 2,000 TheDream.Us alumni, most of whom have achieved bachelor's degrees, which is incredible to think about. And we'll just continue to see these graduation numbers go up. And then in terms of looking at this current fall 21, spring 22 academic year, we have about 4,000 TheDream.Us scholars in the mix. This includes about 1,200 who are starting with us as freshmen or as community college graduates this academic year. So we have a lot of scholars across the country with you all who will be working through their college and career journeys in the next couple of years. So what's unique about our new scholars who are coming through the door now is that the majority of them do not have work authorization. So for this incoming cohort of those 1,200 scholars I just mentioned, about 75%, so 3 out of 4 of our new scholars do not have work authorization. And if you look at those who are currently going to be enrolled in this academic year, looking across all of our 4,000 current TheDream.Us scholars, it's about 45% who have no DACA, no TPS. And as you know, because USCIS is not processing any first-time new DACA applications, and because of the backlogs in processing renewals, we will continue to see fluctuations of potentially this percentage increasing as scholars, even with DACA, may fall out of status, hopefully temporarily. So if we start to look at the career data, we're going to start with our scholar survey data. So every year, as you know, in May through June, we conduct our annual scholar survey where we ask the scholars to reflect on their past academic year. So the data I'm about to show you in the next couple of slides really is a reflection of what scholars were saying for the past fall 2020, spring 21 academic year. So you'll see here in the past academic year, 2 out of 3 scholars said that they are looking for a job that meets their career interests. And if you look at this first table here, you can see how this breaks down by their year in college.
Hi, he's okay.
I'm going over to OA.
Okay, all right.
Quick request, if you're just joining the call, to please mute yourselves. So you'll see here, obviously, the percentages of those who are seeking jobs increases as they get closer and closer to that graduation date. But one of the things we want to emphasize in today's conversation is that many of our scholars should be encouraged and are already thinking about their careers as soon as they start their college journey. So next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so this next slide here is looking at what our current scholars said would be most helpful in terms of professional resources. So they were asked to rank of all these potential options, which would be most helpful. And you'll see that 1 in 4, so 25% of our scholars said that resume building would be the most helpful resource in their career development. And this specifically speaks to our scholars oftentimes ask, how do I build my resume? What can I actually put on there? I've done a lot of volunteer experience. I volunteer at my church, or I'm a leader in my community. How do I really brand myself, given my unique talents and my unique capital, and put that on a resume to really attract that employer, to really get that first interview and get my foot in the door? So those are the common questions that our scholars ask around resume building. And then you'll see about 20%, so 1 in 5, say that they would really find professional resources around navigating their immigration status in the job market most useful. So inevitably, for a lot of our scholars who are either seeking internships or on the job market, get asked questions about their work authorization. And so even though we tell scholars, you are not legally obligated, in fact, it's against the law for employers to be asking you about your immigration status, inevitably, in many cases, the conversation comes up, or how they address it, because when you're talking about yourself in an interview, that being undocumented may be a key part of your narrative, your wealth, your own personal wealth and assets, and how do I really have those conversations? One thing that we'll highlight here in terms of these findings is you'll see lower down on the list is how to expand my professional network. So only 8% of our scholars said that expanding their professional network and learning that particular skill would be most useful. Now, what we do know, as so many of you on this call already know as working professionals in this field, that social capital and that networking component is so valuable to finding jobs and really landing those jobs. It's all about those connections and who you know that can vouch for you. And so what we're sort of implying or deducing from this data here is that our scholars may not necessarily see that social capital piece as being important. And that's certainly something that we've been talking internally at TheDream.Us about, how we elevate the importance of networking, the importance of establishing professional networks out the gate as you get into your college career. So that's something that, if you have thoughts, we'd love to hear in the chat, but certainly thinking around ways on how we can emphasize the importance of building professional networks while in college. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the areas that we are thinking just programmatically in terms of how do we really leverage our partner college model and the amazing resources that you all already provide for your students, not just the Dream.us scholars. One of the questions we've been really thinking about is how to drive our scholars to resources that are already available, such as the Career Services Center available on campus. We know that many of our scholars are already deeply embedded in their campus lives. They're highly engaged, either with their scholar advisors, their academic advisors. How do we take it to that next step and really engage them with the Career Services Center? So this slide here, we ask every year how our scholars evaluate their Career Services Center at their partner college for finding a paid internship or job. You'll see this orange bar on the left is from the most recent survey. The blue bar is from survey 2 years prior, and that yellow bar is from now 3 years prior. So you can see the change in how our scholars have evaluated. We ask about a number of resources available on campus, but this particular one here is about the Career Services Center. What this really tells us is there is really minimal change in how scholars are engaging with the Career Services Center on campus. But the important part here is for those who do engage, that they do find the resource very helpful. What we want to emphasize is the next slide, Tanya, which is this question of scholars who do not use or did not know about the Career Services Center on their campus. So if we look at these orange bars here, the solid bar here is for those who say they did not use the Career Services Center at their partner college. And this hatcheted bar with the 6% right next to it is those who say they did not know there was a Career Services Center on campus. And this does reflect a lot of freshmen who are just getting situated and their feet wet with the campus experience. But in total, if you look at this, this is 42% of scholars, almost 1 in 2, who are saying that they are not engaging with their Career Services Center or do not know about their Career Services Center on campus. And it's interesting, right? Because the #1 resource that scholars say they need is resume building. And we know that that's the #1 resource that's available at these career services centers at each college is certainly reviewing resumes, certainly helping strengthen resumes on campus. So we internally have discussed that this is certainly an area that we want to take a closer look at, and wanted to ask you if this data resonates with your own knowledge or experiences on campus with all of your students. So do you generally find that people are coming to the Career Services Center later on in their college career? Is it difficult to engage students? Does this data speak to what your own experiences are on campus? So any thoughts, any comments in the chat box would be great. Okay, and then just a couple more slides here. We can go to the next slide, Sonia. So very quickly, we want to show you on the other side, what happens when our scholars then leave campus and move on into the work world. So we're seeing here that in the first table up here, you'll see the employment status of those who recently graduated in that first row versus those who have been out of school for over a year. So you'll see overall for all of our alumni, 85% are working, and you'll see that about 13% are looking for work. And you'll see the percentage of those working is slightly lower for those who just recently graduated than our national average, but the percentages are close. And if we look at the second table here in terms of those looking for a job that meets their career interests, you'll see again, 60% overall of our alumni say that despite being employed, that they are still looking for a job that meets their career interest. Obviously, this percentage is higher, as you see on the top row here for recent grads. So 64% of those who are recently out of college may not necessarily be satisfied with their current job and looking for that next step in their career. But it is a considerable amount of students, so almost 2 in 3 alumni, excuse me, who are still looking for a job that meets their career interests. And so what this tells us is really that, you know, just like we have early conversations with our scholars while they're in school about thinking about their major and really planning for their academic success, another really key important part here is engaging them in how that major translates into a career, how to think about careers early on in their college journey so that we can set them up for success as they graduate and look for that first job post-college. Okay, and then last slide here that I'll share from the alumni survey is the most helpful resources alumni identified for finding jobs. So again, we offer them a list of different options that are used, essentially tools that are utilized to find and land jobs. Please let us know which was the most helpful in your job search. And again, would love to get your engagement and feedback here about if these findings resonate with what you see on your campus, especially with immigrant students or first generation college students. But we still find that across the board, whether they're recent graduates who have been out of school for 6 months to a year, or those that have been out of school for over a year, the #1 most useful resource continues to be job posting websites. So simply going online, looking up on Indeed.com, ZipRecruiter, Monster.com. So 1 in 5 of our alumni are saying that they continue to rely on these job searching websites to actually find jobs, and they find them to be most helpful. What you'll see that in terms of the next helpful resource is their own professional network and their own personal networks, which speaks to the fact that they are utilizing their own capital, but we would really like to see obviously this percentage of those relying on their professional networks to increase as we try to emphasize the importance of establishing professional networks. And then you'll see lower here again, where we want to see hopefully some movement, is this row here that says the Career Services Center at the partner college you graduated from. So about 7% of our alumni saying that that was the most helpful resource in landing a job. So I think I'll hand it back to you, Tanya, given that we've laid out the landscape of what our scholars and our alumni are telling us. If you have any questions, yes, thank you. Please feel free to ask or drop them in the chat box.
Okay, thank you so much, Hayne, for all that information. If you have questions come up for you, just put them in the chat and we'll stop later on to address those questions. But I want to move on to a little bit about what our findings were from our Career Services Liaison survey that highlights how some of our colleges are currently helping Dreamers. So if you'll remember, we conducted that survey in the summer. We have about 65% of our colleges participated in the survey. And really our goal was to, we conducted the survey to help us better understand the landscape of the career-related services from partner colleges. And our hope is that we can find ways that we can work together to better support the career aspirations of these students. And this survey was the first step in that direction. So here are some of the findings. These are the different practices that career offices or colleges are putting in place. Of the 47 colleges that participated in the survey, only 29 are providing some sort of undocumented specific career support. Yeah, we know Dreamers need some of these specific supports given their immigration status. And the practice that is the most common is offering experiential fellowships to undocumented students. And that's especially helpful to those that do not have work authorization. 34% of our colleges are offering these opportunities, and all the other practices are less common. So that we hope that by working together, we can provide more support to Dreamers, especially those experiential fellowships or internships or more networking opportunities, and also more opportunities and training on entrepreneurship. As you saw from the data that Hayne presented, we're going to have more and more of our scholars that are graduating without work authorization. So that's going to be a key component that we're going to have to work together to provide the services that these students need to launch their careers. And at the same time, we will still continue to have those Dreamers that do have work authorization to help, so helping them navigate the hiring processes as an undocumented Dreamer with work authorization is going to be important for all of us to do. And now that we have this information, we hope that we can share those practices among each other and help you connect to each other to learn from each other. And towards that end, what we've done is we've created a directory. And right now I'm going to ask Hayne to upload in the chat actually this whole presentation for you. So you have these slides and then you have access to the link, to all these links. But if you click on this link, this tool, you'll be able to see an Excel sheet that is a outline of all the partner colleges that are currently offering services to undocumented students. You will be able to see the college, each of the services that college offering, and then also the contact person for that college. So if you are looking, let's say, to develop entrepreneurship services to your Dreamers, you can go to the survey, pick out the 5-6 colleges that are currently doing that and contact those people that are working on those services and learn from them and really ask questions about how they're doing it to see if you can start implementing that at your own college. So we really hope that this directory becomes a tool that is useful to all of you. And as you go to that survey, if you find that there's information missing, or maybe your college is not listed because you didn't have a chance to fill out the survey, or maybe you've started a new practice since that we conducted the survey in the summer, please add that information to the directory. The more information we have, the more robust and useful this directory can be. So please, again, go to this link that you will find in the slides that Hayne is uploading right now in the chat, so that you can have access to the directory. And some colleges are doing amazing work in helping provide these services. So I want to highlight a couple of our colleges, and I've asked our scholar advisors or service liaisons from these two schools to share a little bit about what they're doing on their campuses. So Maria Gutierrez is here from Dominican to tell us a little bit about this non-employment based experiential fellowships that they have created at the school. Go
Thank
ahead,
you so
Maria.
much. Thank you so much, Tanya. So over the past 9 months, Career and Professional Success has worked closely with our Director of Center for Cultural Liberation, the President Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration, and the TheDream.Us to really look at best practices. So we design NEBOs, which is non-employment based opportunities. They are inclusive professional development opportunities that are centered in student learning and mentorship. NEBOs provide students to sharpen their leadership and professional skills by completing a project or research that is of interest to our students. And they get mentorship under the supervision of either a faculty member or a staff member. And then Career and Professional Success really facilitates the process to, ensure that it's as easy as possible for the student. So we help them with creating a topic that is of interest to them, as well as connecting them to a mentor whose expertise really align with what the student's topic is. And this program is really open to all of our students, regardless of immigration status. Currently, we are running 6 different NEBOs, so 6 different opportunities. They look a little different because they are student-led, so topics are very different. And we have 4 pending in the process students that are completing their application. And just to give everyone an example of a topic that a student has chosen and is receiving funding for, they chose to do research on issues of house insecurity within the Dominican community. And in terms of funding, so we are a private Catholic liberal art institution. So the funding is coming from each department who is hosting the experience. So I have a list of different mentors that, have a budget to provide these opportunities, and I'm able to connect the student in that regards. Now with the stipends, students do receive the stipend at the end of the semester. The stipends do vary, but it is currently around $2,000 a semester. And I'm going to pass it along to Lourdes to talk about the entrepreneurship opportunities.
Hi, thank you very much, Maria. First of all, thank you everybody for your time. At UT Rio Grande Valley, what we have actually done, this has been a long-standing relationship that we've had with the university's Small Business Development Center. That is part of the Division of Community and Government Relations. At one point in time, years ago, we used to be under the same division as the Small Business Development Center, or the economic arm of the university. And we ended up splitting, but after that move, we kept in contact with many of the individuals that we had worked with. And through there, we've actually found opportunities to collaborate for this specific population and helping some of our dreamers with starting up their own businesses. We have a lot of students that want to start up their own businesses. They try to go into independent contractors. And a lot of them don't know, though, how to proceed from that point. And rather than us trying to research it and trying to bring people from outside the university, we realized we have this tool here, this resource that the university has. Why not utilize that group already to help us out in providing this information for students? And they do all types of trainings, which we do provide to this population through emails that we notify them about, such as business planning and financing, business startups, financial management, contracting, even how to market things on social media, and payroll compliance, and all of those things that they go over. So they really go in depth. They are the experts. But when we have a student that needs something, we quickly pass it on to them. When they see possibly students that go off on their own to work with them, those students will then be referred back to us to work on their social skills, more some of their presentational, those soft skills that maybe need a little bit more development. They will refer the students back to us. So it's a really good relationship. And out of that came the opportunity, which through the file that was just shared for you right now, called the Rapid Response Cooperative. This is still in process right now, but this is basically a program that was presented to us by the Texas Rural Cooperative Center, which is also part of that government, community and government relations arm. And they have put together this proposal. All we basically were asked to do is to promote this opportunity to our students and alumni. And what they basically are doing is the students will get the opportunity to be part of like an incubator or business consulting agency, almost like a staffing agency, as you'll see in that handout. They become owners. They're compensated as owners. They get a share of everything. They get insurance for vision and dental as well. They get administrative support for billing. It's all put together to help these individuals basically create a business of their own. As I know there's more legalese than what I can go into here, but it's basically them as contractors. This is still in process. We're really excited about it. And you can see on the bottom of that handout, there's some listings of some of the possible services that this business will come into. Depending on what the feasibility studies were for our local area, the Texas Rural Cooperative Center will guide the students every step of the way, or our alumni, every step of the way, to ensure that they have a successful business in place. So this was a really great opportunity. If this is successful, hopefully it's something that we can duplicate throughout our regional area here of the Rio Grande Valley and increase it. Right now, we're looking at just test piloting it in one area, but definitely increasing it. So if anybody would like, I know there's a few universities or areas across the country that have tried this, only a handful. So we're hoping we are one of these. I believe it's a partnership with Democracy in Action, also helps to support this. So hopefully this is something that will continue on, and hopefully I can give the TheDream.Us updates as we continue going through with this to give you all updates on it. But thank you very much. And I'll go ahead and pass this back on to the presentation.
Thank you, Lourdes. That's very exciting to hear that UTRGV is partnering with Democracy Institute to create a workers' co-op. Workers' co-ops is definitely a venue that undocumented students that don't have work authorization can utilize to start businesses in a group, in a co-op. So it's very exciting to hear that you are doing that. We also have another partner college, Lehman College, who has done that, and their co-op is running up for about 3 years now. So we encourage universities to look at this possibility to bring to Dreamers on their campus. And thank you, Maria, also for presenting today. So any questions for Maria or for Lourdes on either the worker co-op or the experiential fellowships? But certainly you can go to either one of them after this presentation if you want to learn more on how they're putting these in place. And if you're also interested in the worker co-ops model and how you can bring that to the university, feel free to contact me and I can put you in touch with the Democracy Works Institute, which is the organization that helps colleges start those worker co-ops. Any questions, just leave them in the chat. Okay, so the other thing that we learned from the career services survey was that some of the desired trainings that you all want to learn more about the topics that are outlined here in this chart. And last year, last November, we did a 2-day training on some of these topics that perhaps as some of you missed, or you need more information. And I've continued to do some of these trainings. And what I'm showing you in this next slide, and I'm going to ask Hayne to upload also in the chat, this link is last month I did a presentation for NACE on these topics. And so I'm going to give you that link right now, or you'll have it in this PowerPoint. So you can, I encourage you to go watch that presentation, and perhaps hear from the TheDream.Us will look into redoing that presentation later on this year again for all of you. But we're keenly aware that these are what your needs are currently. Then the other question we asked is, what is your capacity to develop and maintain services that are specific to undocumented students? And from this, it looks like a great majority, almost 90% of you have some capacity to develop these kinds of services for students. But We also know that many of you said that you have somewhat of capacity. So we love to know what some of those challenges that you are currently facing to provide those students. So again, feel free to share in the chat if you have any challenge, what those challenges might be, or feel free to also unmute yourself or raise your hand and we can unmute you. That's another way that we can hear from you. But we know that all of you sometimes are very small offices trying to serve many, many students across your campuses, and Dreamers is just one of those populations of students. So as we think about how we can work with you, an issue of capacity is something that we need to take into account. So feel free to let us know what those issues might be on your campus.
So it looks like someone had raised their hand. Maybe they wanted to share in person.
Yes, could you please unmute this person? Let's see if I can get to that person.
Hi, Tanya. It's Betsy over at UTEP.
Hi, Betsy. How are you?
Doing well. Listen, I think it's not unique to the student population. The fact that, we get the opportunity to present to the students at orientation. And I'm always amazed that students don't necessarily, we're pretty much telling him, you have someone here in our office to help you. And I get asked questions like, can you help me with this class, which is an academic question, but some of those students really do not come back and ask for specific career information. So again, it's similar to the same experience as other incoming freshmen, that maybe they're not thinking early on as to how the Career Center can be critical in those early stages, right? And so that's just an observation that I noted, that, we get time with them at orientation, so it's not rushed. And yet not very many of those students come and visit us or reach out to us at the Career Center.
I think we're finding the same thing with our scholars. And one of the efforts we're going to start putting in place is to really start talking to our students as they come in more about careers. That is not just about completing their degrees, but it's ultimately about having a career. And last year we started by putting together a career guide that gave suggestions and recommendations for students of what they need to do starting freshman year, all the way through senior year. But we definitely hear you on that, Betsy, and it's one of the things that we're aware of, that we're going to have to start doing more information and awareness raising about career starting freshman year.
Tanya, and just to follow up on that is, I work with another project on campus. Those students are incentivized to come to the Career Center and do a couple of things. So I don't want to put any more hurdles in front of people, but maybe part of a deliverable that students can submit at the end of first semester of funding or first semester of year funding is proof or something that says you visited the Career Center, you had a mock interview, something that kind of, otherwise, that's our joke here at UTEP, is that unless you require people to do things, they're just not going to do it. And so that's why we work very closely with faculty to require people to go to the job fair, right? They may not get a job or an internship, but at least they're exposed to that environment and get tips on how to navigate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that suggestion. There are not that many things that we require our scholars to do, and this is something definitely food for thought for us. And in the chat, we also put the guide that we created for our students, so feel free to look at that too.
Tanya, it looks like Denise also from John Jay had raised her hand.
Go ahead, Denise.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Denise from John Jay. So I have a few questions, and also I think to the point of the other person about students like lack of engagement. I think one thing that has been helpful for me to make sure that students are seeing the career office is for me to do those specific referrals, because as they come into school, many times they don't even know what they could do, right? They already came in struggling, like figuring out how to get into college. So that just it's another step once they come in, figuring out their career, right? Figuring out the legal challenges about their status. So many times what helps for me is creating an individual plan per student, since they are required to meet with me and we work through that. So it does require, I think this is more difficult for like smaller offices because it does require a lot of sort of hand holding to make sure that that we follow up, right? I look at their interests, I get an opportunity, send it to them. So it's kind of more cater individualized one-on-one support. But my question is, and I think one of the things that we have a lot of more issues here at John Jay in terms of our career center has been very open to opening up fellowships and opportunities on undocumented students. And that has been through like a conversation with us and how do we make those not like employment, but educational opportunities. But one of the challenges in terms of like, one of our goals is to have like an undocumented career fair. And the biggest challenges is how do we communicate with employers about having an undocumented career fair, right? Like what does that even look like in terms of the legal challenges? Because all of those things are what comes up. Like I have to talk to my legal team, right? So how do we start building those conversations with employers about the ways that they could hire or that they could bring in students to do like independent contracting and all those things without triggering all those legal concerns that they automatically kind of get, and then they just kind of shut down. So we have a lot of those like obstacles.
Mhm.
So I think I'm interested to hear how other people have been able to develop those conversations.
That's a great question, Denise. And one of the things that we learned from our survey is really that there was only one other school that has done an undocumented career service, fair. And I think if you go to the directory, you'll find out which school that one is. I can't remember which school that is. So I encourage you to connect with the college that is doing that. But also, I think the other thing I want to mention is that we have a section on our website. It's called Hire Dreamers, and it has some toolkits on how to talk and raise awareness with employers about dreamers as a potential talent pool. So I'm going to ask my colleague Sadana to maybe put in the link, in the chat to the Hire Dreamers page on our website, so you can look at some of that information there. And in terms of, for employers, really, they can hire only students that have work authorization, because that legally they can do so. But what we also find is that there's a lot of misunderstanding or not awareness among employers about the fact that dreamers with DACA and TPS are fully employable like any other person. So I think it's some of it. I know that some of our colleges, for example, a metropolitan state does in University of Central Florida, has done trainings of their employers on the dreamer population and the legal part of it, the strengths that they bring, the fact that they're already in the workforce. So I think maybe perhaps starting with doing some of the awareness raising among employers that are already coming onto your campus for other purposes would be a good way to go about that. And Doris, I don't know if you're on call. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the training that we did together at UCF.
Sure, I'm here. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Doris.
Great. We actually ran for the first time in May what we called an employer education summit. Some schools call it an employer university. We took advantage of the Zoom world and had a different workshop every day and sent out a call to all of our employers to register for a workshop. And so we were lucky to have Tanya present to employers about DACA students and dreamers and TPS and what their how employers can hire the students, how the students have work authorization already. And so that provided employers with some information that was really new for many of them. And they didn't realize that these students do have work authorization. They don't need any kind of sponsorship. And so that was sort of the education that we provided to our employers. And I was just thinking, I actually want to follow up with some of those employers. I like the idea of the undocumented student career fair. We probably can't hold anything like that, but I do want to kind of reach out to those employers to maybe collect their job descriptions or something like that and pass those along to our students here at UCF. But I would encourage schools that have those kinds of events for their employers to put together a workshop. Or also, if you don't have an event for an employers, set something up. It did take some advanced planning on our part because it was a week long of events, but that was a really great workshop for our employers here.
And now Doris and her team have the information and the ability to continue those workshops for employers. And thank you, Lynette, from Northeastern Illinois University. They're the ones who've done an undocumented career fair. So if Lynette, I don't know if you are willing to share a little bit about how that came about. It'd be great to hear from you. Maybe Lynette cannot hear me, but please contact Lynette.
Hello?
Oh, there you go. There.
Sorry, it was taking a little while to unmute there.
No problem.
Yeah, I'd love to share very quickly. I put my LinkedIn link in the chat box for those of you that want to have a deeper conversation and how this happened. But, one of the things that I'm very critical on as a hashtag critical career coach is thinking about how we're serving our student population, particularly those that are undocumented, identified at the time at Northeastern and now that I'm at Joliet Junior Community College. And part of that was access, right? I mean, Tanya, you talked a lot about how students just don't know what they don't know. And for me, it was extremely important to kind of be that not only resource broker, but that bridge builder to access to information. And so I collaborated with our director of undocumented student services at Northeastern Illinois University. She totally loved the idea. And then we collaborated with some of our warm contacts, but we also made some cold contacts to employers that, and also organizations such as TheDream.Us, who are interested in at least providing that information. So I spun it in a way where it was a documented career resource fair. We did have a couple of employers that were more than open to hire documented students as soon as possible. And, if you're interested in what those employers were, please contact me offline. But we did it in a way where, we required registration. It was one night from 2 to 6. So those students that, have classes, once they get out of class, they can come to the virtual career resource fair. And those that are working full-time can come after work, right? And still get access to information. Something that was really unique to our career resource fair was being able to attain pre-recorded videos of information from particular employers. So if for whatever reason the employer wasn't able to make it, the students still had access to the information and can follow up with the employer contact at their convenience. And so it was a really cool, really unique opportunity. I think we had over 80 to 100 students register. And a decent amount attended. I don't have those numbers on me because it was just this past spring 2021, but would more than welcome to, answer any of your questions offline afterwards. But really appreciate this space, Tanya and the team, because this is a really phenomenal refresher, and I love seeing the data that you were able to collect.
Thank you, Lynette, for sharing that. And please, again, make use of that directory to connect with each other. And if you're not in the directory, add yourself to the directory if you're providing any services to undocumented students. So let me keep moving. I would love to get some of your input on how we can move forward with learning from each other and finding resources and practices as a group so that we're not all working in our own isolated areas, but hopefully we can leverage each other's time and efforts. So so Donna, I could ask you to launch the first poll. So this is really about in future sessions that we would want to do for career services liaisons and for scholar advisors. Would you be more interested in having several sessions and each session focused on one particular topic to go deep on that topic? So for example, one session could be just on like how to put together an undocumented career fair. And really that's the topic, and we go deep, and we can have several of those throughout the year on different practices. Or given just capacity and time limitations, are you either more, maybe you're more interested in one longer session, maybe like a 2-hour session when we go over all the practices, maybe not as much as on a deep level, but definitely deeper than what we've done here. So what would be you would be most interested in? And I can see already that many of you like the idea of having several sessions and to go deeper on each effective practice. So that's very helpful feedback for us to know as we think about how we can engage you in the future. So let's go ahead and end that poll since we have that data. And thank you for everyone for participating. And I have one more poll, if you can launch the second poll. So the second poll is this idea of perhaps launching a learning community. And this is more of an involved participation. So I'm thinking there's some issues that our students are facing that are really big challenges. And for example, if we look at how do we help students that do not have work authorization. And as we know, we're going to have more and more scholars in that situation in the future years. And we know that entrepreneurship is the major way that these students can launch their careers. And we all need to figure out, well, how do we help these students become entrepreneurs? That's a big lift. And that really starts from having the right mindsets, the right skills, the right and the right training and support for those students, and how do they incubate businesses and where they're going to find funding. That's a big issue. So this would be an idea of creating a group of colleges that are really interested in working together to help develop programs or services or resources for those students. And that learning community might be like maybe a semester long or a year long community in which we really go deep on that one particular subject. And together as a group, we come up with possible solutions or answers to that to that problem. And so letting us know if this is a possibility for you. We're always very cognizant of how much is asked of all of you. And we would now want to put more work on your plates. And that's why we're asking if this would be of interest to you. So thank you for answering that. And it looks like about 34 of you have answered, 35. So give you a few more seconds to think about this and answer this question. It looks that it's at least 30 of you that would be interested in participating in something like this. So that's very encouraging. Okay, so let's go ahead and close the poll. Here are the results, and thank you. You can just go ahead and close all that out, Sedana. And the last question is, do you have any other suggestions of how we can collaborate among each other, among the partner colleges and with the Dream.Us? Anything that pops into your head would be welcome. We're welcome to hear that. Go ahead, Cynthia, I see you raise your hand.
Yes, sorry, my camera's off. So the question I have is about marketing. If anybody has any marketing strategies. So I know that we service our students beginning during freshman orientation, and we've done a really good job doing that. We've seen the numbers increase about by half of our student population receive services from the Career Center, either log on to our platform or not. But I'm thinking, are the Dreamers excluding themselves? Like when they receive the same messaging, as far as freshman orientation, are they excluding themselves thinking, oh, that's not for me though? And if so, if any marketing is done, what marketing is used to let them know that this is for you? Is there anything that indicates that they are included?
Mm-hmm. That's a great point, and it's also about, getting the students to come and to be engaged. But definitely I'm putting that as a topic for a future conversation, Cynthia. As possibly maybe a session could be on that topic.
Right, because I think of all the students that we see, and we do see a lot of our students, we really don't know. Like if we would ask the career counselors, how many have disclosed that they are Dreamers or that they have DACA? They don't. So we don't even know who we're seeing.
Right, and finding out who really that population on your campus sometimes can be hard, but there are ways.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Cynthia. Oscar, I see your hand raised.
Yes, good morning. My name is Oscar Fonseca, and I'm a career counselor here at CSUSB, specifically at the Palm Desert campus. And my question is revolving around the same topic in Cynthia. So I think for all of us, we're extremely interested in the transition for the students to receive jobs. But I think the most important question is what strategies, and I see that a lot of people are here from various universities. What strategies are some of you doing to engage students as early as possible to begin this conversation? I feel that a lot of this is reactive when we, have these conversations with students and they graduate and then they just start thinking how to monetize that degree. What are the types of things that we can do as an organization or as a group for this information to be in some ways enhanced or communicated earlier, like in orientation or in specific opportunities? I know that the word mandatory is kind of a bad word in the university system. I came from the nonprofit world over 15 years. And so, the business mindset is there. But now coming to post-secondary university, mandatory is not something that many administrators want to use. But if students don't know their services and students don't know what they're paying for, and then how are we going to relay that message? So I just want to know if there's any strategies of any other universities implementing these ideas earlier in the student's university career.
Thank you, Oscar, for that question. And this topic of early engagement is coming on the top of my list of things that we might want to have a whole session on.
I think at the University of Houston, we always have events. So instead of making things mandatory, we make things fun. So we'll have like a Taco Tuesday on the patio where we do a little bit of resume review, but we invite students, we message all students and let them know that we're the Career Center. Come, and we're giving away, free food, but also some career service education. So that way they're not scared of us. They're just like, oh, I'm going for fun, but they don't know that they're also going to be educated along the way. And we try to do a lot of those different type of events every semester.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get us moving because we only have a few minutes left, and I have a couple of key things I still want to share with you, and I might go over by a couple of minutes, so please bear with me. But I am keeping definitely everything that is in the chat as we continue to figure out how to best to work together. So let me just want to give you a little bit about what the Dream.Us is currently doing so that you are aware. So one of the areas that we want to work with the students on is helping them be career ready. So we've partnered with an organization called U Science that basically where students take an assessment, and then through that assessment, it shows them possible majors and careers that the students should consider. And this is something that we will be making all of our scholars aware of in this fall. And once we do that, we will let you know that we are asking our scholars to take this assessment, because the results of that assessment can be very, very useful as you have one-on-one conversations with students. So more to come on that for both the students and for you on this service that we'll be providing. The other thing is really at the Dream.Us, we're trying to figure out what's our role in helping students become career ready. And what's our role also in terms of working with you and complementing the work that you're doing on your campuses. So we're on that journey and that quest of trying to find the answers to that. And towards that, we are doing 3 pilots. 2 of them are already happening and 1 is for the future. 1 is over the summer. We partnered with an organizational career launch that they provided a 5-session just on how to network. A lot of our students told us that everyone tells them to network, but they don't really know how, or they don't have the confidence. In this program, this pilot that we did with 20 students was very successful. The students left feeling that they had the know-how and the confidence to go ahead and develop new professional relationships. So that ended at the end of the summer. Then currently we are doing a pilot with another organization called BASTA. They provide a 10-week session on everything from building resumes to cover letters to interviewing skills to networking. So it's a broader and longer career session. So we're going through those pilots this fall. They will end in November. And then we're still in the works of perhaps doing a pilot with MLT, which is an organization that provides an 18-month-long pipeline into jobs in banking, finance, corporate, and software engineering. And our idea is really that after we finish these pilots, we would be able to know which one of these work best for our undocumented students, our dreamers, and to learn from that. And at the same way, we will be learning more about what you're doing on your campuses, and then to figure out how, if we were to continue with one of these organizations, how that would complement the work that you're doing, and how we can promote whatever it is that we decide to offer to the scholars in the future. So again, we will be sharing with you more on each of the results of each of these pilots and working with you. And then we continue to provide networking opportunities for our scholars, both with our alumni and with other professionals and through professional organizations. So throughout the year, we hold events, and also we highlight the events that organizations like Alpha or SHIP have for our students. And we also continue to have a handful of partnerships with organizations that provide internships or job opportunities for undocumented students. So right now we work with these 4 organizations. It is really through the PC Weekly that you all get on every Wednesday, is when we tell you when these opportunities are coming up for that are open to our scholars. So I really encourage you to keep up with the PC Weekly that we send every Wednesday, and so you know what we're offering our students. And then a few resources for you to be aware of is every month, every first Thursday of the month, we send a career digest to our scholars, and then we include that digest in the PC Weekly for you too, so that you see what it's available to our scholars through our partnerships. And then on the Dream.Us website, we also have a Career Connections web page that is specifically for our students. So maybe Hayne, you can put in the chat the link to that page, to the Career Connections web page, but it basically students can filter by either by their year in college, or if they have work authorization or not, and then it will pop up different opportunities that are available for them, or resources or information that is available for them. And then lastly, we talked a little bit earlier about the fact that we have a web page on Hire Dreamers that is specific to employers, that you can use the messages and the resources that we have there, so for you to help raise awareness among the employers that you have, that you bring to your campus about our student population. So with that, I want to thank you for giving us your time, for joining, and again, encourage you to go to that directory, find who's doing what, connect with each other. You can also join our Facebook group that is made for specifically for partner colleges. I know my colleague Sadana gave you the link on that for the Facebook group. And that Facebook group is another online community where you can continue this conversation that we started today. And we will be in touch with you over the next few weeks and months to talk about what are the future sessions that we can bring together to start working with each other. So I hope this was helpful. Again, thank you for joining us, and have a good day. And I will hang out for another 5 minutes. If anyone has a specific question, I'd be happy to answer. just either put in the chat or raise your hand, but I'll be happy to stay for 5 minutes and answer more questions.